Hey everyone, and welcome to the 11th installment of the weekly catch-up podcast. It is Wednesday, December 11?
11.
11, 2019.
And this is episode 11.
Ooh.
11, make a wish.
I made mine.
All right.
I am your host, Carson Gibbons, and with me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. B-Rad Colvin.
Hey, guys. Okay, so you don't know I'm doing this, but last podcast, you were talking about making a song or something for the episode.
What'd you do?
Well, I just, wrote down a couple lyrics. I've been taking notes, what's been going on in the world recently. And so if you'll allow me, just give me a couple seconds of your time. I'll have a song for episode 11.
Ooh.
Here we go. Welcome to the podcast where the news don't ever let up. We might talk about religion or the El Phoenix waiter that had us fed up. Rest in peace to Juice WRLD. We lost another rapper. Brother Nature got beat up, but did y'all investigate it after? A man scored 100 points against our alma mater.
Oh.
And the Cowboys are no longer kicking it with Brett Maher. I ran a 5K last weekend and my knees are still a little shaky, and I'm sure we'll talk about what's been going on in politics lately. Carson started his new job. There's so much that has developed. We got a lot to cover this week, so now let's catch up.
Whoa.
Hey.
Dang, dude. That's awesome.
Thanks, man.
Wow, I feel like very unprepared for this now.
Well, that's all I got, so you take it from here.
Oh, I'm touched. That's a beautiful rap.
Thanks, man.
I like that. I'm can't wait to go back and listen to that already.
Yeah, I stumbled through it a little bit, but the nerves. That's
you-
my first time rapping for you guys.
So you did a verse with David Mwansa. Who is it?
David Mwansa.
Dude,
David the Psalmist, formerly known as DK the Duke.
He put something on, I don't know if it was Instagram, I think it was Twitter, and you had retweeted it, and I listened to it, and it was straight fire.
Yeah, he's amazing.
I think it was the lyric video of him on top of the car or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is like produced. This is incredible.
Yeah, and I want to give him a shout out because he just got engaged this past week.
Snap.
So super happy for my guy, David. If you guys want to check him out, he's done a lot of music on Instagram. You can check him out at David the Psalmist.
And you did a song with him like a year back, right?
Yeah, about a year ago. Tweet of the year.
Pretty fire too, actually.
Yeah,
and
I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, but
you have your own unique style, and it was pretty good. You're a good rapper.
I appreciate that.
I'm not even.
I know as like a kind of just like a not mediocre, but like just as a normal vanilla white dude, like I got to come with it if I end up writing something,
Well, I don't think you're a normal vanilla white dude, just having known you.
All right, well that's cool. But, no, I appreciate it.
You're a man of the streets.
Well, got to keep your ear close.
Yeah. So let's get into it, man. Let's touch some elements of your song. Shout out B-Rad Colvin for that.
Thanks, man.
We're going to put it on SoundCloud. Put that on your top 10 Spotify list this week.
There we go.
So
okay, let's start with the El Phoenix waiter, because that happened right after we signed off last week. Carson and I went to go get dinner, to talk about his new job and everything, which we'll get to. But yeah, man, we went to El Phoenix just to get a quick bite. And what did you think about that waiter?
This was the one that he would like repeat what you said, and then he would just never do it.
Yeah, it's like he would confirm it.
Yeah,
but then it would never happen.
We had additional conversation where we even explained to him. We first sat down, and Brad had the foresight to say, "Hey, man, why don't you just go ahead and bring us two salsas a piece?" And I chimed in like, "Yeah, like we're big fans."
Yeah, like I even told him, I patted him on the shoulder and I was like, "I'm just trying to make your job easier. We're going to be plowing through these chips and salsa. And so if you could just, get us two apiece." And he said, 2 apiece? Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I got you, my friend.
He was like, "Oh, I get it." Like he saw us. We were in the smallest booth of it. When the little side booths along the wall by the bar. which can't fit half their customers.
Yeah, it's like a character in the book is like, yeah, I'll do it, and then the narrator's like, he didn't do it.
He did not do it. Little Piggly Wiggly did not.
Yeah, and then he got your order wrong. Like you asked for double.
I was just all wrong.
Yeah.
And
Anyway,
then he would disappear. I think, and no shade, but I think that he was incredibly stoned. Like, because he was kind of laughing and smiling at us, and I just think that he meant well, but I don't think he was all there.
And then he disappeared in the back for like a good long time.
Yeah.
Anyway,
he disappeared and continued.
That was the first thing that I had written in my notes whenever I first started making that little verse.
You know what's frustrating is that technically, while it's the first time that we've brought it up, that ain't news. Getting bad service at an El Phoenix on a Wednesday. Like, if I had a dime for every time, it's just they water their food down that day too.
Well, it's because everything's cheaper on Wednesdays.
Well, the thing that I get, but you don't get the enchilada
I
special.
don't, but they got my order right.
I'll tell you, you go to another El Phoenix on like an off day, like Thursday through Tuesday, and everything is just heartier. It's like the consistency. It's like the difference between having a cabbage or having cabbage soup.
Yes. Yeah. That's good.
So let's get into the you keep steering if you'd like. You can steer us through your song. Well,
okay.
That's chronological.
I mean, I can. Not everything happened in the order of events. Plus, I got some personal stuff along with the media. So I don't know if you want to go ahead and cover like our personal stuff, or if you want to get into media first. What are you feeling? Or you just want to jump around sporadically?
Man, yeah, I want to jump around sporadically. So
okay.
I'm 3 days on the new job, so my brain is straight saturated.
So do we want to get into that new job? I know that you said
Let's circle back.
Okay.
You keep going with your stuff.
All right. Let's go ahead. I'm going to jump around within my verse as well, because I was really proud of a man scored 100 points against our alma mater, and the Cowboys are no longer kicking it with Brett Maher.
That was really...
Thank you. That was my favorite line that I had written all week.
I could attack that so many different ways, but why did we lose Maher?
Because the dude sucks.
I have multiple sports questions for you.
Okay, well, hopefully I can answer them all. And if not, then I'm going to look it up while you keep the conversation going.
Wouldn't he hit the ones that he wasn't
supposed
to hit?
He hit like a 60, 3 or 4 yarder.
But then he wouldn't hit the 42 yarder.
Which we kick much more consistently, and he was missing all of those. So we gave him the boot.
Since he didn't have one.
Yeah, pun intended. And he's gone, and I think we're going to be better for it. The Dallas Stars, this is not in my notes, but I don't know if you saw my tweet.
That's my big... No, I didn't, but that's my big question, because I saw it trending on Twitter yesterday, and my boss actually went to the game last night.
Okay.
We office right next to American Airlines Center.
Right.
And so I'm leaving the office yesterday, and like it's probably 5:30, and I see all the Stars fans coming in. But I knew that the coach got let go for some sort of conduct, and I could never find in writing what the conduct was.
It just said inappropriate conduct, and we don't know what that means.
So we still don't.
No, I don't.
Okay,
I don't think the general public. I mean, maybe some good like hardcore fans know, how he is better than I. But as far as just like me looking up trying to figure out why he was fired, I have no idea other than inappropriate behavior.
Yo, it's got to be something dark then, right? Like, here's the thing.
Are we going to speculate? Let's put this out.
I'm just saying, like, they implement like some sort of 4-point conduct plan or like initiative within the organization to like get things back on track. Like, I don't know what he was brewing or if it was like systematic within the organization.
I mean, it had to have been bad because they've been winning lately. Like we're
16-17-4.
Yeah, they got off to a rocky start, but they've been doing really, really well. And so whatever he did, who knows?
What are we thinking?
I don't know. Was he physically inappropriate? Was he racially inappropriate? I don't know the man.
Here's the deal. You can be a racist in hockey because it's such a Canadian sport. And no, I don't actually mean that, of course, at all. To be honest with you, my brain had gone to much darker places than where yours has. Honestly, like Sandusky type stuff.
Oh, yikes. Let's hope that's not the case.
When was the last time you saw a coach get fired for going 17-4 to start the season?
Good point. Good point.
You think that coach could cheat on his wife and
But
still have a job?
wouldn't that news have broken like right away if it was something like that?
Man, everything is so piecemeal, like, I don't know. And half the stuff doesn't make it to the news.
Yeah.
Half the stings for child predators and things like that, they're not documented by Chris Hansen. He's not showing up like
Yeah,
to catch a predator or something.
that's fair.
My very first boss out of school, I'll never forget when the WFAA story broke that he was HIV positive
hmm
and caught in the commission of trying to have sex with a child, and he'd even brought like some, what is it called, like a prophylactic or something, that there's some sort of medicine that can mask the signs of your disease or the transmittability of it for a certain period of time. He had all of that ready to go and was trying to meet with a 14-year-old boy. And sickening, right? Like and it meant the end of the agency essentially. Like they just got sold for parts recently.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm going here, but I know that with Sandusky and some of that stuff, the reason why was it Joe Paterno? Is that his name?
Sure.
The legendary head coach
Yeah.
at Penn State. The reason why he died with kind of he's dead, right?
Don't get me lying.
I think so. The reason why he went with such a tarnish was because Jerry Sandusky was like an assistant coach under him and
Yeah.
was utilizing not only like the locker rooms and the football grounds, but also some of the charitable vehicles surrounding the school, the team, to basically run a camp for boys or something. Like he organized his uh, disorder, if you will.
Got it. Yeah, homeboy died in 2012.
Homeboy. He was always just so legendary. And, he was one of the most legendary college coaches ever.
Yeah.
But
okay, if we're staying on sports, before we get to our big story of the week, I had also attended the Mavericks game on Sunday.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
With my girlfriend and my cousin, and so they were able to meet, which was really cool. The game resulted in a loss for the Mavericks. However, our boy Luka made history. He surpassed Michael Jordan for the most consecutive games with at least 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists since the NBA-ABA merger in 1976. So,
already,
man.
How many games is that?
I believe the record was 16, and this was the 17th. Like, so Luka has done it for 17
That's
games.
steady
straight.
production.
Yeah. Amazing. So that was great.
Related, I actually was having lunch with my cousin Daphne on Friday over at my favorite neighborhood joint, Lucky's Cafe. I don't think I've taken you there yet.
No.
I definitely have to, but she and I had met over there, and we're sitting there in the booth in the picture window, and Rick Carlisle walked by.
Oh,
Like he was in a Mavs t-shirt and shorts,
okay.
and like literally was like, I don't know if he was going to Eatsies or the restaurant next door or whatever, but you could see it looked like he was getting some sort of takeout or something to go from somewhere. But he passed by the first time, and I turned to Daphne and I was like, "Is that Rick Carlisle? Is that the coach of the Mavericks?" Like, and she was like, "I don't know," and I was like, "That's Jim Carrey. That's Rick Carlisle."
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
he's a pretty tall guy.
And just correction, it's Luke. It was the 19th consecutive game.
Wow.
And so he actually has an opportunity to continue that. They have a game coming up, and the streak hasn't ended yet. So he could keep it going. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting. Got to see a bit of history live. It was my first time seeing Luka. They got off to a rocky start, but it was still a lot of fun. That was the first game that I had attended since 2011, the year that they had won the championship. I had gone to one of the semifinal games or quarterfinals. I can't remember, but yeah, so it was great to be back and watching the Mavericks live and seeing Luka in action.
What's their record? Are we doing pretty good?
Yes, we are. Hold please.
Dude, I'm scrolling through Twitter and they still don't know. They still don't know what's happening. In fact, people are making like kind of like mockery tweets of trying to figure out what happened to Coach Jim Montgomery.
I don't know, but the Mavericks are 16-7. So they have that going for them. Them and the Stars are the fun teams to watch this year. Cowboys have just been tanking, so we're not. Other than the Brett Maher news, I don't have anything to report there. But
Did we play last Thursday?
yeah,
Versus the Bears or something?
Yeah,
Did we lose to the Bears? Like, I'm not even watching the second half of these games anymore.
Yeah.
It's so pathetic. I don't know what's happening. Troy Aikman he was on the radio or something today saying that essentially a lot of people are saying that Dallas's like playing core is kind of overrated, that they don't actually have all of the tools in place that everybody kind of thought they did going into the season.
I mean, yeah, that's been more than clear. They lost to the Bears 31-24. I don't know whoever was watching that game. You even saw Jason Witten getting heated with one of the coaches while he was sitting on the bench. And he's just a good old boy. He rarely ever argues or has any problems, but he was really even getting heated. So tensions are running high for the boys.
But nothing has moved yet. Like Garrett still has a job. Yeah. I saw a tweet that was like, when I hear a Dallas coach has been fired, I think, oh, Jason Garrett finally?
Yeah.
No, the Dallas Stars.
Yeah, well, so that was similar to one of the tweets that I had tweeted out. I was just like, if the Dallas Cowboys could take note from the Dallas Stars, that would be great.
Yeah, unprofessional conduct, like losing.
I mean, they have been unprofessional lately.
I mean,
like, we could go out there and get pummeled, Come on.
They don't even deserve any more time on our podcast, to be honest with you. So
moving on.
Let's just move on to the page.
Just when I think we're done talking about our alma mater,
snap.
Southwestern Adventist University. Oh, man.
Man, we were on national media.
Yo, your boys made it to ESPN.
Literally,
shout out to the Knights.
The SWAU Knights. I shouted out Pebbles a couple episodes ago for having he was a 13-year undergrad. He scored 100 points lifetime. No, I'm playing.
Well, speaking of 100 points.
Fill us in.
So yesterday, our boys over at Southwestern played the Wayland Baptist University, okay, which resulted in a loss, 124-60. Now, the news here is that they had one man, and I'm speaking of Wayland Baptist University, one man that scored 100 of their points. 100.
What a ball hog.
One man almost doubled the entire team's points from Southwestern.
Man, he went wailing on SWAU.
Yeah, and he had one assist, but
one assist.
That's neither here nor there.
I think 50 points were dunks.
I mean, I saw the highlights. I watched the highlights. I actually showed my students it during class. We needed, we had just really gotten down. We were reading McBeth, and it was pretty depressing and everything. So we needed a good laugh.
Yo, McBeth is dark.
Yeah. So they finished their work, and I rewarded them with with the highlights from the game last night.
Want to watch everyone's older sibling get pummeled?
Yeah. Now I will say JJ Culver, he has a brother, Jarrett Culver, who plays for the Timberwolves, and that man was the 6th round draft pick from the 2019 draft, I believe. And
what college did he go to?
Don't get me. I didn't do that type of research, so that's on me. But
because I've never heard of Wayland Baptist University.
Yeah, nor have I.
I mean, you obviously in any business or team, you don't want 85% of your production coming from anyone.
Oh, he's a Texas boy. He went to Texas Tech.
There we go.
Jarrett did.
That's a much more accredited sports program than I'm sure Wayland Baptist is. But
yeah, so JJ's out here, just dribbling with his right hand. The man should have, he's a good player, no doubt, but there's no way he should have scored 100 points. If you watch the highlights.
Well, dude,
I'm not
40 minutes in the game.
Yeah, I don't want to try to rip on,
no shade, but maybe
no shade, but play some deep. Put your hands up.
Maybe practice on a Saturday.
I saw.
Yeah, I'm playing. I'm
friends with a lot of people. I'm friends with a lot of them on Twitter, and I'm not trying to start beef or anything.
Well, it's not a priority for Southwestern to field good teams. We know that.
My dad actually texted me this morning He texted me because he didn't know that I had seen it, but he texted me the link to Fox News that showed the score and everything. And I was like, yeah, man, I saw. He said, ouch. He's like, our players are here to study, obviously. Like, yeah, we're much more concerned with academics than basketball, clearly.
So my experience with this was basically waking up and looking at Facebook and seeing like every guy that I ever went to school with there, just sharing ESPN SportsCenter's link and going, man, this is wrong. This is embarrassing. But I know that we were all just so pumped that a game of ours was covered by anybody ever. Like,
Mama, we made it.
It's like score 150 next time. Maybe we'll go on, Fox Sports. Maybe we'll be on. I don't know. That's really funny though.
Yeah.
Wow. So they can't send a marketing email or shoot a basket.
Yeah. I don't know what to say there, man.
That's why we get it together. Dr. Ken Shaw, I want him to do that same competitive fundraising approach to the athletics programs there.
Yes, please.
I want to have state-of-the-art track and field, tackle football.
Yeah.
Everything.
If anyone from Southwestern does hear this, I want you to come over to CTA, the high school that I work at, and play against our boys.
Whoa.
And that's like, I'm very confident in our players. Like, they actually are very good. And I am digging into Southwestern a little bit, but I honestly think our boys could compete with them.
Well, we both graduated from Southwestern, so we can say whatever we want.
Yeah. Yeah, like, they took my money.
You guys had a win last night, right?
Yes, we did. We played against the high school, in which, previously the team that we played against, that man had scored, or that boy had scored.
That man.
Yeah.
You talk like Stephen A. You're like, that bad man.
Listen, man, I'm getting riled up. He had scored 40 points against the team that he had played last time. We shut him down last night. He scored 23. We ended up beating the team by like 11 or something like that. I had posted it on Instagram. I can't remember the final score, but the point is that they had won
like
6. They had won
58 or something.
They won like the past 6 consecutive games, and we finally put an end to that. So proud of my boys.
What's y'all's record?
We've only lost 2, so I think we're 8-2 or something like that.
Nice. Are you an assistant coach for that?
Yeah, I've been promoted to assistant coach. Our head coach has been announcing me as the assistant coach. Before, I was just there to like really, get to know my students, and I really just wanted to support them. And the coach saw that, so he would like let me sit on the bench with them, and I'd kind of just give them pep talks. But now I'm actually like in their huddles and helping guide them, telling them what to do, helping coach actually. So
I can see the upcoming KJCR story where they're like, is the team chaplain stepping into the huddle too much?
No.
Is he running plays?
Not the chaplain. Anyway.
Man, I thought that there was going to be a lot to talk about with that guy hanging 100 on our alma mater, but when we say it out loud, it's like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. They played us.
Yeah. Like, we were just so terrible. I think we won one game in my 3 years of going to university there, and we pretty much mobbed the court. And by we, I mean, all 40 of us spectators.
Yeah, I mean, the fans were always good. Like, we'd still shout and cheer, and, because
we danced to the instrumental Lil Wayne that they would play us.
Like you said, like, we've earned the right to make a few jabs. We were there for the games, and
I've never heard so much instrumental Lil Wayne, Birdman, and T.I. in my entire life, but we all knew what was up.
Yeah, like, why spend time practicing whenever you can just find, like, a sick song,
Yeah.
It's like, I make it rain, I make it rain. It's like,
but if there were no words, it was instrumental. They wouldn't play the words with it, so it'd be like, a Millie would be like, just the beat. I can't even do it. Yeah.
Anyway, I'll keep this going. So no more about sports. But if we're talking about rap, I got Juice WRLD.
What is that?
Juice WRLD is a young rapper who passed away over the weekend.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, he was on an airplane, and he landed, and whenever he was at the airport, like he was in one of the terminals, and he had a seizure and ended up passing from the seizure. It was reported that one of the pilots had phoned in to the police saying that the dude had like 200 pounds of weed along with hard drugs, and so they haven't done the autopsy report yet or anything. So we don't know if the hard drugs is what caused his seizure or anything like that. But we do know that he did pack some on the flight, and he's no longer with us.
200 pounds of weed, like what in his?
I don't know. Maybe
In his.
May-
Do you know how much weed that is?
Did I say 200? Hold on.
200 pounds is like what they confiscate from the most successful hidden compartment trunk raid in Arizona. Like 200 pounds is that would fill a trunk.
Yeah, so that's on me. That's probably not correct. They did find 41 bags of what was suspected to be marijuana. So So I don't know if I'm far off, honestly.
I mean, it's probably double-digit pounds.
41 bags and 6 prescription bottles of suspected liquid codeine, along with 3 firearms.
That was in his bag?
Yo,
who packed this guy for the airport? His worst enemy?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was found in his luggage, so I'm guessing, I don't know if he checked his bag or if, man, I don't know how this made it through, honestly.
I go through I have a go bag, basically. Like I have a couple years ago, whenever I went with some of my friends to Europe for a couple of weeks, John and I had gotten some of those like travel backpacks.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, everything that I had in my medium-sized roller up until that point fit and more into this backpack. And it's just really nice because, yes, it's heavy, but it's well distributed, and it allows you to not have to roll anything, which when you're going down cobblestone streets in Paris to go to a train station to hop onto a flight, like you just want a backpack. But there's so many like little zippers and compartments, and I'm never traveling with anything illegal, obviously, but at the same time, just out of precaution, I've always thought like those TMZ stories, like how does Lil Pump get arrested at the Miami airport for having drugs? And he has a cop, an off-duty cop who's escorting him through the airport and is like flabbergasted. He's like, what? There's drugs?
No idea.
Where?
No, we
like,
knew.
And law enforcement is talking to him like, hey man, like we know you're straight. And he's like, I'm straight. Like I know that this kid's he's up to no good, but at the same time, I'm keeping him out of that. So I just proactively go through every pocket just because I'm like, I don't know if like I got a pocket knife or just anything a pair of scissors. Like you never know what's going on.
Some nail clippers.
Just anything or something over 3 ounces. Like, did I leave an old bottle of cologne? Like, obviously I'm serving up the most vanilla things that could possibly be in there. But at the same time, you never know if somebody else has packed something for you, or people could. That'd be a great way to get at somebody, like you're about to go to the airport and I don't like you. We just had a fight.
Let me slip this into your...
Slide a handgun into your side compartment,
Yeah, I feel you.
And you're allowed to... Here's the other thing, though. If you are like an LTC, for instance, you can easily, and maybe even if you're not, but you can easily check a bag with a firearm in it.
Yeah.
So maybe people get bags confused at the airport, and because... If you can check a variety of items, but if you try to carry it on, everything gets escalated essentially.
Right. Realistically, it was 70 pounds.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Where was he apprehended? He had actually made the flight.
He made the flight, and he landed. It says police and FBI agents arrived to meet him as they landed because he had made it onto the plane with all of that. Which, once again, I don't know how that happens, but it says, he also had 2 9mm pistols and a caliber pistol with metal piercing bullets found on the plane.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. So there you go.
He's like, man, this here's recreational though. This is a recreational amount.
It was just for the music.
That is intense. I bet the codeine triggered the seizure or something, like
that's
a
what
variety.
I'm thinking.
I also think that a lot of people are. I've heard a lot of news stories recently about people taking edibles and then getting on flights and having very bad reactions. Like there was a NBAer recently who got excused from team activities for a minute because he had taken a gummy on a flight that he got from another teammate that he wouldn't rat on, and they ended up having to like ground the plane or something.
Oh, wow.
He had to be restrained or something had happened.
Yeah. So once again, Juice WRLD, he died at the age of 21. And I don't know, do you know what the 27 Club is?
Like Amy Winehouse.
Yeah,
And
so Amy
Kurt
Winehouse,
Cobain,
yeah, and Kurt Cobain. There are several artists who have
Jimi
died.
Hendrix.
Yeah, several artists who had died at the age of 27, so they've called it the 27 Club. And Juice World actually has the lyrics, "What's the 27 Club? We ain't making it past 21." And he dies at the age of 21, so people are shook by that one. But yeah, man, his most popular song is "Lucid Dreams," which is a song that if you listen to any like pop rap station or anything like that, that's a song that you couldn't have escaped last year. Um, yeah, I'm sure
That's
you.
tragic.
Yeah,
Although
so super popular. He's a SoundCloud dude that made it big. Um, and
if I'd attained fame at 18, 19, 20, I'd be dead too.
yeah, man. Well, I mean, that's just like all that they rap about. You know, you have Future who, you know, what's his most popular song? Molly Percocet. Like, you know, like that's and all these kids are like
It's
coming into
called
the game.
Mask Off.
Well, I know. I'm just saying the lyrics
Percocet.
that
Molly
the
Percocet.
yeah, that's what all
my favorite
that's
song.
what exactly. And so that's what all these kids are looking up to, and they're like, oh yeah, this is cool. When back in the day, it was really about like sneaking in and you know getting some alcohol or cigarettes or whatever it might be. Not that that's okay, but it was
It used
something
to be
probably less harmful than hard like cocaine or codeine or different things
rap.
to that effect.
We listen to it's like a jungle sometimes.
It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. Yeah.
Who is that?
I don't know. You keep talking. I'll look it
Man.
up. Don't push me because I'm close to
the
the edge.
Man, that go listen to that song on YouTube, folks. I always just end up YouTubing. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder.
Yeah,
And then they show me the real thing. It's like, when was it made?
It's Grandmaster Flash.
Yeah, it's a classic.
Yeah.
Man, there's like 6 solid verses in that just literally show, honestly, it shows your descent and your plight in the hood.
Yeah.
And like how you start out, like, we're like every man or woman, we just want the normal dream. And then this thing trips us up. And because it takes us to this new low, it's like a jungle sometimes. And then it's like a new low. And you basically end up, I think the guy in the last verse is like, now you're dead.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
But it's a great old school video. Did you see when it was, maybe it has it in the bio when it was originally done? It has to be in the 80s or something.
Yeah. Keep talking because I'll find it.
I actually, Brad and I were watching the Cowboys game the other day, and I stopped the Cowboys game to play that song for like 6 minutes.
Yeah, because nothing good was happening from the Cowboys. 1982.
Okay, yeah.
I'm so happy that we found a way to talk about that. That's the song that we've been listening to forever. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I feel like that little gag has been going on for years. Because didn't it start like I couldn't remember? I'd be like, Brad, it's like I couldn't say the words, and you'd be like, it's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder.
Yeah, man, we've been doing that for at least 5 years, at least. Yeah, and so that's what we would listen to, or even in the early 2000s, we would have like Ludacris or Lil Wayne who would talk about their scantily clothed women, or the alcohol or smoking weed or different things like that. But man, like today's rappers are really glorifying those hard drugs and just making videos of it. They're always like Instagramming, like live videoing their stashes of drugs and stuff, and it's clearly taking a toll on the youth. They think it's cool, man.
Yeah, well,
they need to jumpstart the DARE program again.
No.
Do you remember the DARE? No, you don't think so?
No, I don't.
Keep kids off drugs.
I'm for the decriminalization of all drugs and federal legalization of certain drugs. But I actually think when you look at other countries, look at countries who don't even have a drinking age. Like their level of alcoholism in certain ways is less prevalent. Like kids are demystified to alcohol and certain types of drugs, and as a result, like whenever you take away a black market, you take away some of the mystique, and you actually can decrease use among certain groups. And I'm not advocating for anybody to do any drugs. I think that there are some that are probably benefit. Like I've been fascinated to watch the psychedelic movement reemerge from like an academic standpoint, where you have all these guys up at MIT that are saying, man, psilocybin, it prepares cancer patients for the grave. It helps smokers quit smoking. It removes the PTSD and trauma from war combat members. You know, like I I personally, well, I shouldn't even say this. Never mind. But I'd love to go on a guided experience in my life. I've never done that,
Right.
and it's totally natural. And again, I'm not advocating for this, but um, one thing that Rogan has always said about it is that for a moment, for however long your trip is, your experience, that it removes you from your ego. You see your place in the world, but without the shelter of your ego, and you come away from it with a peace. It's kind of counterintuitive that you come away with a peace that you don't really matter. Like,
Yeah.
like it's gonna go on. It was there before you. It's gonna go on after you. Like, be at peace.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna be okay. And I can't describe it because I haven't been on that journey. But I watched a 60 Minutes episode the other night where Anderson Cooper is talking to your kind of stereotypical looking terminal cancer patient with, the chemo and hair loss and all of these things. And she was so at peace. And she had gone on a guided psilocybin trip with a therapist just once. And it showed her, it prepared her for death in a way that she could stomach it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And going back to you talking about like, just decriminalizing it, so it's like less taboo, or like I feel like there's a rebel within a lot of us, and like so sometimes like human nature always wants to break the rules or anything like that. So I can see what you're saying as far as like decriminalizing or not making it as huge of an issue, because then people won't sneak off and do it, or maybe perhaps they'll find safer places to do it because they don't have to hide it or different things like that. So
Some of that stuff definitely plays a factor. I think that in my advocacy for eliminating black markets, it's more due to the violence that black markets create among the people that conduct the business. So this goes to like the cartel situation. Like, we have a two-way war going on where certain things are allowed under the radar in an effort to go after bigger things. But this war on drugs is ludicrous in that, like, who is Mexico's biggest exporter to? Like, where are all those drugs going? To us here in America. So there's definitely a market for it. So what are we doing? We as citizens and consumers, we're out, and I'm just speaking generally as Americans, but let's be honest, like, a certain percentage of the population is smoking cannabis that was cartel produced. They're snorting cocaine that was cartel produced, heroin, fentanyl, whatever the case may be. Um, and then they're turning around and they're electing representatives who are spending billions of dollars inflicting violence upon the cartel and creating, it's just not even necessary. It's like, I wonder if we just recognized the cartel and said, all right, we're going to put a tariff on this and you guys are going to have to file this thing with, the Mexican government, but
yeah.
we're going to import this, and under a certain quantity amount, you'll be able to purchase it at a Rite Aid or a CVS or I don't know, whatever. All I'm saying is that it's very hypocritical that we buy all of their drugs and then we fight those drugs entering the country. Like, we're wasting a bunch of money here somehow. Like, because we could either federalize it, legalize it, tax it, regulate it, make money, or we could not worry about it if you're doing it. Like,
Yeah.
I you
I see
should
that.
never worry about what someone else does with their body unless, like, your ability to, like, snort cocaine and swing your fist ends at my nose. Like, your right to do that ends at the tip of my nose. At
Yeah.
any point that you are inflicting your way of life or process on me and my family,
That's
or
when you step in.
that's when it becomes a legal issue. But if you want to shoot up heroin in your house all day, that's your prerogative.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry.
I get what you're saying.
Also, when you really do the research on the history of how these drugs got classified and why certain like I forget the origins of some of the drugs that were banned were in direct competition with drugs that were currently legal on the market that people knew were hurting people. And
Yeah.
I don't know. At one point, you couldn't drink in this country. Isn't
Mhm.
that crazy? Like, 100 years ago, you couldn't drink. Not
Yeah.
even 100 years ago. It was like 1940, right, or
Something like
1920.
that. Yeah.
It was the 20s
Mhm.
or the teens.
Yeah.
Um, isn't that how, like, was it the not the Vanderbilts, the Rockefellers? Weren't they bootleggers?
I believe so. I'm not super knowledgeable on that.
I used to be a voracious reader as a kid, and I would read a lot of. I read the American History series where they
Mm-hmm.
would put a fake character into the middle of all the real proceedings, and that
Yeah.
was my favorite. That and like westerns, like I would read Davy Crockett, Daniel Boone, of
Mm-hmm.
course, Lewis and Clark,
Yeah, yeah.
like enthralled with all of that.
But yeah, like I think like in the
Swift
20s
Arrow,
they had like the prohibition. Is that
Prohibition,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. Where they had the prohibition laws, they weren't allowed to sell or import alcohol. Yeah, so yeah, like you were saying, it used to be illegal, and now they found other stuff to make illegal.
One thing about how many people are running around Dallas tonight with a gun and a stack of cash and protection and drugs, and they're looking out for rival gangs, they're looking out for cop cars. And what if we could just let them go about their way and just be, hey, obey the traffic laws and be on your way, like we don't care what's in the car. Like
Yeah,
go see your friends, transact your deal or whatever's going to happen. Like if I think that yeah, if it's not serving the greater good. Now, all that being said, when I see decriminalize, if you have a pallet of cocaine in your house or your garage or something with like a forklift, maybe somebody should check on that. Like I don't know where that line ends.
yeah,
All I'm saying is that I hate seeing good people get hung up on like a charge for just the smallest of infractions.
yeah, yeah. No, I totally get what you're saying.
And honestly, that's where racial discrimination comes into play
Yep.
because so many more white people have been let off with cocaine residue or a little baggie of marijuana than black people
Well,
and other
yeah, and you
minorities.
have people who have been jailed for years and years and years for just possessing marijuana. Meanwhile,
Or
uh, you
waiting
know,
for bail.
well, but you're talking about whenever something infringes on you physically or however, um, but it's their prerogative if they want to partake in drugs. But my issue is, you have people locked up for doing drugs and not even selling it, just possessing it. Meanwhile, somebody else is out here raping, somebody else from their university or some stranger, and they get like a slap on the wrist or just suspend. Like, what was the one college where the guy had raped this girl and he was like on one of the sports teams or something, and
Well,
he had
Duke
to like
lacrosse had a big issue
yeah,
back in the
maybe
day.
that's what I'm thinking of.
But there's
Um,
been honestly probably too many stories to
yeah,
that
and
frat hazings and dying and
yeah, and so that honestly makes me so livid because that's actually like taking physically harming, physically and emotionally harming someone. Meanwhile, somebody that was just recreationally smoking weed is locked away for like their life.
well, any disruption in your momentum is going to affect you and your ability to make money, your abilities in your career, especially if you're an able-bodied man. This is how we cripple communities as a country: is when we pull over somebody in an underprivileged neighborhood with expired tags and find the smallest bag of marijuana or even crack, for all I care, in the vehicle.
Yep.
And then the next thing you know, you've taken a father of two and a sole breadwinner out of a home, out of an apartment where things were going okay right then. Let's just say for this hypothetical example. And then you take him to jail, and because they were living paycheck to paycheck, because he was busting it and maybe selling some drugs on the side to make ends meet or whatever, because that's all he saw modeled for him coming up, and he's trying to do things maybe a little bit more on the up and up. I'm making him really virtuous.
Yeah.
This is the most virtuous drug dealer ever. He just needs a shot, folks. So when you take him and you jail him and he can't come up with the collateral for like the bail or whatever, and so he has to wait out a court date, there's a staggering number of individuals that are in jail because they couldn't make bail.
Yeah.
And that so disproportionately affects obviously poor people of any race.
Yep.
Um, so, and when you take that momentum out, listen, a lot of people in an underprivileged community, I've had a lot of jobs where I've clocked in and out, like where it's like, if I miss work that day and didn't call in, I'm fired. They're not
Right.
putting me on the schedule the next week.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
I'm not doing that.
yeah. So, um, So yeah, if you disrupt that in somebody's life and make them spend the night in jail, and then they have to wait 8 weeks for a trial hearing or whatever, why don't we just avoid all of that and keep these able-bodied people working, contributing to the community, their families, and you know, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know either, man.
It's just one of those things. I actually heard on the way home from work, speaking of rap and death and all of this, there was this British guy on AM radio talking about the top Google searches of the year for 2019, specifically for North Texas, actually.
Okay.
And the number one topical. So he said this particular study doesn't take into account, like, obviously things like YouTube or Google are the
Right,
top
yeah.
Google searches, but from a thematic topical perspective, Nipsey Hussle was the
Yes,
number
man.
one Google search in North Texas.
Love me some Nipsey. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you and I were talking about him last week whenever we went out to dinner, because that's somebody that you've been listening to more.
Yeah, I
lately
surprised
as well.
B-Rad with
Yeah,
it's like last time that I checked.
that's right, man.
I've been all about Nipsey. I looked him
Victory
up
lap,
because
baby.
everybody was like so they were so in awe of him, especially in the wake of his death.
Yeah.
And so I looked him up. This makes me sound like a rap noob, but I looked him up and I started listening. I was like, I love this guy.
Yeah. He's a rapper. His album Victory Lap, released in 2018, was nominated for Best Rap Album of the Year at the 61st Grammy Awards. He's somebody that I had listened to. So I know, like, on the first or second podcast or something, I had talked about whenever I had traveled to Iceland. Well, I had really gotten into Nipsey Hussle, and so whenever I flew over to Iceland, like, that album, I was walking at night in the streets of Iceland as it was like snowing down and everything, and I was on that trip by myself, so I would just have my headphones on, and I would just blast Victory Lap as I was walking through Reykjavik and everything, and just felt like a cool dude, even though I probably looked like a lame. But
Well, they don't know what you were listening to, but that
Yeah.
could be a meme.
Yeah.
Like when you're in Iceland alone, it's like Nipsey Hussle,
Yeah.
and then when you're
For
in
all
Iceland
they,
Bay, it's
yeah, like
Michael
listening
Bublé.
or like listening to like Dancing Queen from ABBA.
Hey, I can get down on some Dancing
No,
Queen.
yeah, I can as much
That's
as
a
the next.
banquet song, son.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, Nipsey Hussle, he was killed back in March of this year. He had um, a store called Marathon Clothing, and his whole thing was like the marathon continues. Like, that was his kind of tagline for all his promotions and everything. It was just about he goes by the name Nipsey Hussle, and it was all about like hustling and pushing it further and not ever giving up. So he was at his own clothing store, and he was shot 10 times in a drive-by. He had actually gone to his store early because one of his friends had just been released from jail, and he was going to give him like some new clothing and everything so he could go back home to his family and like look presentable. So he wasn't even like supposed to be working that day or anything. He was actually going to like do something nice, and he was gunned down. And yeah, everybody was just sickened by it.
Even the biggest like gangsters in that community were like, that was a coward that did that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
He was so revered because somehow he broached both worlds, in that he was true gangster through and through, right? But
Yeah.
somehow he had this message of inspiration that I think he was focused on like black business and the black dollar,
Yep.
which is something that Killer Mike has been super into.
Yes.
I don't know if you watched his doc
on Netflix.
Dude. Did you watch the doc where he tries to make it from like Atlanta to
Yeah.
Athens?
Yep.
Only on black businesses.
Yeah.
Like he has to take black owned transportation, and he couldn't even eat at black owned restaurants because the food wasn't sourced from like black farms, for instance.
Yeah.
And he has such an incredible point in the infographics breakdown of that documentary. It talks about how by race we keep our let's call it the white dollar, for instance, or the Asian dollar. We keep those within our race for a certain amount of time before we go out of that race or neighborhood, so to speak, to spend our money.
Yeah.
So the amount of time, like Whereas the white dollar would remain in the white community for a matter of, what was it, 10 or 30 days or something.
Hmm.
I think the black dollar in the black community, it was a matter of like hours,
Yes.
like literally. And so, you know, it's one of the big things that Nipsey Hussle and like Killer Mike and some of these guys, I think Jay-Z to a large extent has stressed about generational wealth and how it's imperative that you set your kids up so that they can set their kids up, and that we got to have stuff to pass down. And that's why I love these new ad campaigns too. Have you seen the ad campaign? It might be Chase Business.
I don't think so.
It's a little African American boy, and he's in a somewhat underprivileged neighborhood in the commercial, but he's talking about his mentors, and it's showing like the barbershop and
Hmm.
some of these different local establishments, and he's got his own like clothing and fashion line that
Yeah.
he's selling, and he's like, these guys are teaching me the importance of credit and all of this
Hmm.
different stuff, and then he says, you know what they say, like slow feet don't eat, and I loved how they were able to just retain the essence of like, you know, I'm personally inspired by the whole hustler message.
Yeah.
I'm not out there pushing bricks of cocaine, obviously,
Yeah.
but
And
it's,
there's other ways that you can hustle, but
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like hustle,
Yeah.
I think it's an inspirational message. And
Yeah. Exactly.
I've been really, uh, I've wanted to, as dumb as this sounds, as, the blue eyed white boy, like I've wanted to contribute to that effort of, like black entrepreneurship, or
Yeah.
keeping a minority dollar in a minority community, just because to me, I'm a capitalist. Like
Hmm.
I'm not a Republican anymore. I don't think I've been a Republican ever genuinely. I think I was raised Republican to a certain extent,
Hmm.
but I'm socially much more of a Democrat, obviously. I'm really a libertarian,
Mm.
libertarian capitalist. And um, yeah, I think that instead of certain programs where we pay money to distribute money, that just focusing that money, whether it's UBI with Andrew Yang,
Hmm.
or focusing on these things called opportunity zones. Have you
Yeah.
heard about these things?
No.
So my cousin's property up in Broken Bow, Oklahoma, is actually designated as an opportunity zone. And what that has typically meant for the most part of the counties in the U.S., and don't quote me on this, but they'll pick a section that needs revitalization or breath of fresh air or whatever, or is maybe a burgeoning new community ripe for development. And they'll say, you can come in and buy this property with like capital gains, for instance. So
Yeah.
if you made money off of, I guess, stock or an investment or something, you could take that money tax free if you go buy that property or that building or whatever, and put 50% of its value back into it, like fixing everything up. you it's a tax haven essentially for up to a decade or
Yeah.
something like that. um, a lot of those are in underprivileged communities, and areas that need more businesses,
Hmm.
you know
Yeah. For sure. I respect that.
yeah.
I love that. And then just going back to like Nipsey, or like sometimes people ask me like, why do you like rap so much? Because like I teach at a Christian school and all this. I mean, first of all, I just love wordplay as being like an English major and all that. But secondly, like a lot of my favorite rappers, even though like they may use explicit language, or talk about drugs or alcohol or whatever it might be. However, whenever you look at people like Nipsey Hussle or Jay-Z or even Pusha T, J. Cole, like their message is that, listen, I had to sell drugs and I had to do all this, but like I'm trying to build a community so that you guys don't have to. Like that's something that I've done in the past, and like I still have all these street smarts, and I'll get busy if I need to. However, I'm trying to make it to where the future generations don't have to do this, and that goes back to the younger generation of like these SoundCloud rappers who are doing all of these hard drugs. Like they're not really listening to the message, and they're trying to go about their own way and really make the rap game or the streets theirs.
I think it's the opposite. I think that they are
Really.
not a complete professional rapper, and that's why rap is an element of their overall brand and lifestyle that
Well,
allows them to sell shows and sell
Well, and they're not even. I
sponsorships.
mean, if you listen to tons of the like the SoundCloud rappers' interviews and stuff, they're not in it for the music. They are in it to make money
Exactly.
and to, you know, get those drugs and everything. So that's just what I'm saying. Like they're like, even though they have these mentors to look up to and everything, they're like, nah, I'm not even here for that. I'm just trying to make a quick buck and bounce.
You got to think that back when you had to go to the recording studio and get set up with the producer and plot, you know, call Timbaland, call JT, are they in town that week? Can we lay this track down?
Yeah.
There
Can we
was
get Just Blaze on the track?
yeah. Um Justin made another one. Whenever they did that, there had to be more effort and pride in the ultimate work product. And what I've heard from even on like the Breakfast Club or some of these podcasts is that when it's SoundCloud and you can syndicate immediately and
Yeah.
get immediate feedback, and all you need to do, you were talking about it being
Well,
2 minutes of,
yeah, and there's a lot of good that can come from it because it's like, well, you created that content and you're making the money. I think there's something to be said, especially whenever it comes to like a lot of the kids entering the music or entertainment business. At least the labels could somewhat look out for them and like, you know, prep them for whenever they go to concerts and everything. There's this famous, you know, up and coming, she's really popular right now, R&B singer, Summer Walker, and she just talks about how much she hates touring and performing, and like she doesn't even like going there, and she like will tweet that out before right before a performance, and she, you know, it's like, what are the fans supposed to think? Like, you're not even inspired to be there, and she'll just kind of sit and like will mumble through her words, and like she sounds great, but she's not putting on a good show or anything. And I feel like, you know, in the past, whenever they would come into the entertainment industry, at least they could be prepped and somebody would be helping guide them to put on good shows. So again, like a lot of these kids are uninspired and they're just trying to make a quick buck, and they're not doing it because it's like their passion, which, I mean, as a music lover, that part sucks for a consumer. But again, I understand like where they're coming from. You
I
know,
mean, they
it's
don't know
just like a
anything.
business to them. You know.
Well, they know that it's a business, but they're 18, they're 20, I mean, we're children when we're that age, especially as guys. And if
Yeah.
you think of it, if you had grown up without any element of father figure, and you everything that was modeled for you around you included guns and, you know, drive-bys and slinging drugs and all of this different stuff, and then we live in the freelance age, you know, the fractional age, the do-it-yourself age, the DIY, YouTube it, get it done. There's Google for that.
Yeah.
So all of these performers, there's never been less representation in some ways, like less formal gatekeepers, so to
Yeah.
speak, in that. I mean, guys were talking about it the other day. Logan Paul sold out the Staples Center
What a
for
doof.
a fight that grossed like how many
I don't know.
hundreds of millions of dollars?
It's
Like
so frustrating.
the Tim Dillon was actually talking about how he thinks a YouTube star, like a YouTuber, will be the next president of the United States in an upcoming term. Um,
God help us all.
but I mean, I don't know. Your song today reminded me of. I don't think you listened to Two Bears One Cave.
No, I don't.
I caught an episode or two over the last week, and it's so funny because did you see how Bert did a dancing promo video whenever he announced more dates on his Body Shots Worldwide tour?
No, I did not.
Okay, so Bert hired like a choreographer and a nice videographer and, you know, sound editors, and spent probably 10 or 15 grand on a video that he did for YouTube that he announced on Twitter and all of his social media, and it was simply announcing the remainder of his dates. Sorry, Bert Kreischer is a comedian. Sorry,
Yeah.
we're so bad at making these standalone.
Yeah. He's a comedian. He typically performs without a shirt. He's this chubby dude. And his most famous joke talks about him.
The Machine.
The machine with the Russians. So if you,
I don't get it. I didn't love that story.
I didn't either, but he certainly milked it, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
know his comedian buddies always tease him about, or, you know, poke fun of him for always just having that one joke.
What's funny is that he's so self-aware that like that's the moment that made him.
Yeah.
Like apparently he put that video up back in the day and like woke up and it had 80 million views or something like that.
So anyway, so that's who we're talking about. So if you want to, you know, look up that little bit,
It's pretty hilarious. So he's a big chubby boy. He normally performs with his shirt off on stage. on his Netflix specials. So in this particular video, he's in like a studio or something like that, like a dance studio, and he starts to dance to like this hip hop beat, and at one point he like rips off. He has like the magnetic trousers or whatever.
Okay.
He rips it
So
off,
like
and he's
breakaways.
yeah, and he's basically in a banana hammock, and but he's such a packed fat kind of guy that he doesn't, and that angers me because I collect fat like such a small young child that might be female. Like I get it in my jowls and I get man tits. I hate it, and he's just like packed fat, so it like goes to his thighs and his butt, and he does get a big beer gut. But anyway, it's a really funny video, and like his best friend is Tom Segura, so he does Two Bears One Cave with Tom Segura
Hilarious.
for the Your Mom's House studios. We'll talk about that more in a second, but so he did this video, and Tom was like, "I gotta one up him," essentially. So at the beginning of the last episode, he's like, "All right, man, I want to show you this video real quick," and he has just an over the top video where it starts. All these girls are like sitting on top of a car, and you can hear they're watching a video on their phone, and you can hear that it's Bert's video, and they're like, "Ew, this is so gross." And then one goes, "I can't believe he's married," and then the other girl goes, "Someone married him?" Like they're just ripping him a new one. And then they look up, and Tom Segura is dressed as like this crazy character with like a ponytail braid, and he looks like some sort of uh, like macho gangster or something.
Okay.
And they're like, "Oh, it's Tom Segura. You've been dancing since whenever." And he's like, "I know I have." And then he breaks into this whole thing with like, he's got backup dancers that he apparently hired from like Janet Jackson videos and Sierra videos. He's got like a top music video producer. And then at one point in the music video, he stops and it pans over to Bert, but it's Fat Bert. They had gotten a stunt double, and they had put Bert's face on the stunt double. The stunt double is easily 400 or 500 pounds, and he's just like foaming at the mouth and like. Anyway, they go back to dancing, and then at the end of the video, like Bert falls off of the stool that he's sitting on. Fat Bert does, and then Tom Segura stabs him to death.
Whoa.
Like it is a wild video. So he shows this to Bert for the very first time on the podcast, and Bert, like there's a moment of silence, and then he starts crying because he's laughing so hard, and he's like, "I've never seen anything that I like more than that. Like that is hilarious." And now they were talking about the concept of the fact that there are two guys that are self-promoting. They're spending 5 digits producing digital content that they're going to the people that work for CBS or Viacom or Sony Music Entertainment, whatever it is. They're going to those people because it's the same directors that are available. If you're available through CAA, maybe you're available on Upwork too. Who knows?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you meet the freight, who cares who the client is? If you can book the per diem or the daily quote. So they were just talking about how, like, when is this going to stop? Are we going to end up like financing our own movie? And like, like it's just, there's never been more democratization of media. And that's why people are calling Rogan Johnny Carson.
Right.
Because he is the most consumed man in the world when you think about it. Yeah. Like, I just watch him on YouTube, but each episode of his gets maybe hundreds of millions of downloads now. If not, it's tens of millions for sure. I think the last stat that I heard was somewhere between 60 and 100 million downloads per episode.
Yeah. Dude's crazy. And we were talking about, Grandmaster Flash, like being one of the old heads from rap. Like, Joe Rogan, he would be one of the old heads from potting. He was one of the first to do it, and that's why he has such a huge following. And he was one of the first to really jump on board with that. So highly successful, and it'll definitely be interesting to see how far this media thing will go, because clearly there's even more money to be made there.
Well, and that's part of the problem. That's why, there's been impeachment hearings, and I literally flip to polar worlds when I'm watching cable news. Like literal polar worlds. And it's not just, this channel is in defense of President Trump and this channel is an attack of President Trump. Like, you flip on the morning show, for instance, and they'll have something on President Trump on CNN, and then you'll go over to Fox News and you'll be afraid of like the Muslim terrorist epidemic that's happening that, you don't see anywhere else.
Right.
It's like, they scrounge up. Yeah. Anyway, and then I don't even hardly watch MSNBC because I can't stand them.
Yeah. I feel like I've done a good job at segueing today. So we've been talking about, these public figures in the media, and who better to talk about right now than Brother Nature? Are you aware of who that is?
No.
So Brother Nature is this young dude that's been really, really popular on Twitter and a little bit on Instagram. He's known for feeding these deer that always show up at his house, and the main deer is Canela. So it's this dude, Brother Nature, and he's always kind of roaming around and feeding animals. And so he's actually, like, people are calling him like the kind of the new Steve Irwin. Like, he's a friend to all animals, and he's been pushing like this. We just need peace and love and everything. And has just gained a lot of popularity there. So if you go on Twitter, you can just search Brother Nature. There's tons of videos that you can watch of him like feeding. And the crazy thing is, like, all of these animals will walk up to him. So you'll see him like feeding baby carrots to squirrels or random bunnies, and he'll just walk out in nature and do all that. So he's been like stunting on Twitter, posting himself in these exotic places because people are now flying him out to all these locations to have him there. Well, anyway, over the weekend, there was a tweet from him that said, "Hey, I know there's a video out there of me getting beat up at this pizza place, and everybody with their phones out were just watching me get beat up, and nobody really helped." And he's basically just calling them punks for beating him. And then everybody came to his side and was like, "Oh man, that's terrible! I can't believe like nobody would help him." He's a good looking dude, so all the ladies were like giving him sympathy and everything. And just this genuine dude is always pushing peace. Well, it turns out this actually happened, I believe, in a pizza place. And so the pizza place was like, "Okay, we're tired of this. This dude's been playing the victim." When in actuality, like, we have video of him. Now, originally he had walked in, and there was somebody who saw him, and he's really popular, so they started videoing him, as people do whenever they see famous people. I'm not saying that's right. Well, Brother Nature was angered by this, and he asked the guy to delete it. And the guy was like, "No, man, like, we're in a public place, like, it is what it is." And Brother Nature gets like really upset, and he points at the guys and he says, "You're dead, you're dead." And like, he walks out for a couple seconds. And then there's a video clip of him rushing back in. He doesn't even attack the guy that had been videoing him. He attacks another guy, and so that guy's friends like pounce on him and like they start pouring like Cholula or some like hot sauce on his head and like start stomping him out. And that's the short clip that we had saw in the beginning where everybody was giving him sympathy, but in reality, he's the one that came in and like really started a physical fight and then got beat up afterwards.
He sounded like this guy I knew. This guy, Juicy Smouye.
Another great Dave Chappelle bit. If you haven't watched his most recent stand-up.
Juicy Smouye.
Oh, man, that's great. But yeah, so this guy, he was really trying to get social media on his side. Because he's
what a punk.
Yeah, and I had always been a big fan of his videos and everything too. But I'm really good at not rushing to just like believe whatever I see on social media, because I feel like there's always more to the story, and especially whenever it comes to Twitter, it's always like, okay, well, let's wait for the other shoe to drop, and clearly this time that happened. So.
On his head.
Yeah, shoe dropped right on his forehead.
I haven't seen the video at all. I wasn't aware of. I feel like I've heard the name Brother Nature several times.
Yeah.
Over the last couple of days, but I've been so tuned out because I've just been getting my brain saturated.
Yeah, and I want to move on to that next, because that's kind of all that I have as far as like the main media front.
Juicy Smouye, Brother Nature, his last tweet is actually shout out to Juice WRLD.
Shout out to Juice WRLD. Okay,
it's
wow,
like an RIP.
It all connects.
Yeah, because I literally didn't know where you were going with that whole story.
Yeah.
But I was scrolling through Twitter the entire time B-Rad was talking about it, and this guy has got like 2.4 million followers.
Yeah, dude, he's big. Yeah, that tweet was, I know there's a video out of me getting jumped. Everyone in the pizza shop literally just watched with their phones out and did nothing. Oh, well. And it's like, whenever somebody says, oh, well, after that, it's like, nah, there's probably more to the story.
Don't
Like,
investigate.
yeah.
Well,
It's like, oh, well, like the story ends here.
if you have 2.4 million followers and you don't have the clout to get the video that you want to post and you're not posting it, you don't want people to see the video.
Yeah, and the dude, comes across as super unproblematic. And for somebody just to be like randomly, punching him in Brother Nature, he tweeted out that it was a pizza shop, but it was in actuality a sandwich shop. But yeah, for them just to be like all of a sudden, beating him up or whatever, there had to have been more.
Oh, I'm sure.
But I want to hear more about what you had said, going on in your personal life.
Well, my professional life, I think, is what you're asking.
Yes.
Which, is my personal life to a large extent. It's all intertwined. No, I was going to say, obviously last week I announced that I got a job, and I was very excited about that. I filled B-Rad in on all the dirty deets
right.
last week at dinner. I was very touched by your interest that you took in just that whole process.
Oh, yeah, of
I had
course.
several people that, they knew what a large transition.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to talk about personal, it was a large transition personally in that, I've been a co-founder of a startup that's been 100% virtually remote for the last 3 years plus. So to go back to it, I would say it's an office. So we're down in Victory Park, actually. And it's this awesome co-working space that just opened called Hatchway or Hatchways. It's got this awesome cafe and overall co-working space that has like just a bunch of different nooks and crannies, if you will, like a bunch of different 1-person, 2-person, 3-person phone booth pods and like cool little like almost cafeteria alcoves, and like it's just laid out in such a way that you kind of always feel like you're on a work movie cooking set or something like it.
Okay.
It's so, I don't know how to describe it. And they have the most friendly, attentful staff that is just walking around. And like, I was literally sitting at one of these awesome, it looks like a space desk or something. Like it's got a wraparound. It's like sitting in a first class airline seat on like Emirates or something. Okay. And it's got the wraparound. It's got, all the plugs right there. And I'm sitting next to this floor to ceiling picture window in Victory Park, just like pinching myself because, I didn't love work from home personally. So I feel very blessed to, be on a team that, is around other people. And I draw a lot of,
and I love that for you,
return on energy and inspiration from that. It's fuel for my fire, so to speak. And so one of the I guess the front desk staff walks up and she was like, "Do you need a refill in your coffee?" And I was like, "No, like I can't, I don't even do that to me. Like, what am I supposed to do here, lady?" Like, I was like, "I can't in my right mind have you do that." And I kind of like looked down and I was like, "Yeah, no, like I can do it. Don't." And she was like, "Stop." And she was like, "How do you take it?" And I was like, "Where am I?"
Yeah, because for the past, however long, you've been getting up from your desk, like in your living room, walking a couple feet to make your own coffee.
Yeah.
And now you have these.
I'm gonna save a lot of money in coffee. I can tell you that much.
That's great.
I wanted to expound. I definitely feel like we're kind of an open book on this podcast, and this is definitely, its own thing. One of the things that I told Brad last week was that I was like, just because I got a job doesn't mean that my commitment level to getting together and recording this podcast has changed one iota. Right. Yeah. I said, worst case scenario, even if we had to pare things back down, especially going into 2020 to 2 or 3 recordings a month, I was like, worst case scenario, they're longer sessions and there's more to share. There's more insight gathered in between each podcast. And we're on a great clip. We're going to have at least 12 episodes this first quarter of doing this, which is incredible. And I'm really excited about that. But yeah, I was going to say some initial details about the new job that I got, because I know I just teased it last week, but I actually started. So I feel confident saying I'm the director of sales at Appreciate.
Yes.
Yeah, boy.
As in Appreciate you, champ.
So Appreciate is a public benefit corporation. It's a startup founded by a guy that's very inspiring to me. Has an amazing track record of building successful teams and companies, and I think that I have a lot that I can learn from him and my colleagues. So been on the job with them for 3 days now. So I'm basically directing the sales process and our as we try to scale in this market. So what Appreciate is it's a employee recognition system whose purpose is to build the greatest relationships on earth. So
Mm,
one of kind of our core values is that relationships are one of the keys to true human happiness, and that one of those key components is a give get cycle and accomplishment with others, and just living out these core values and recognizing each other for recognition's sake, and really building. So what their mission is to build a portable record of achievement as told by others. And what that looks like is I could go into the iOS application, for instance, or the web portal, or the Android app, or several different integration points, and I could basically recognize BRAD for being a great co-host of the podcast.
hey,
And I could say, thanks for going the extra distance. Here's a core. Let's say our podcast had core values. I could give you a core value sticker, and it's almost like a social network in that I could then ask, let's take our top listener. Let's take like a one of our parents or a Michael or a Heston or whoever listens to us the most. We could ask them for validation and say, hey, don't you also think this person does a good job? And all of the engagement and the metrics are recorded, and it builds this kind of vibrant um, portrait of your achievements and your emotional intelligence, and kind of the emotional culture that your company is fostering, because a lot of the culture that we talk about is cognitive. I was
right.
it's surrounding it's like your compensation, or this is the way we act, or like we put customers first, but
Hmm.
it has nothing to do with like how we treat each other or why we exist or anything like that. And so that emotional culture and all of that is something that Appreciate is definitely focused on. And I'm just really excited because I was telling my boss this afternoon, I was like, I've definitely drank the Kool-Aid on like the
Yeah,
mission and stuff, because we've just been through enough sessions and calls and different things at this point that I'm just very excited. So we
yeah,
have
man.
a variety of different companies, schools, universities, associations that are using the platform, and it's free to sign up. You could go add a connection, recognize them, start your portrait, and um, add people from your company or your
Yeah,
team, or whether it's like your youth group coordinators or praise team or your fellow teachers.
hmm,
Um, anyway, it's a very exciting space. I'm overjoyed with the overall situation, and to be I took the last 2 or 3 months off since I left my startup, and I just feel shaking the cobwebs off, and I'm
yeah,
excited to get back at it and contribute. And um, just the team keeps a fast paced tempo. Everyone is bright eyed and intelligent, and just really robust with their skills.
yeah.
It's not a place that you can go and blend in.
That's great, man. I'd also imagine that it would be beneficial, like not that you want to just look forward to leaving the company or anything, but whenever you're moving on to another space, you could always perhaps show your future employer or somebody that's interested in you all these things that people have said about you.
That's actually one of the express intents. That's You use me as an example, but you're totally right in that. Let's say that you work at Microsoft today and you're on a team there. Well, Microsoft can actually they can purchase like an annual package, essentially, where they're going to get all these different reports, custom onboarding, the special access layer view on kind of how their organization and the people in it are recognizing each other, validating one
Yeah,
another, the emotional culture that's being created, fostered, you know,
yeah,
um,
that's
reinforced.
yeah, that's super important.
But then, because it's always free to use, like you might have a profile that you're using, and you might be within that Microsoft fold, for instance, but you could be recognizing contractors or
Hmm.
third party team members that you're
Okay.
working with, fractional people, an Upwork person.
Yeah, yeah,
It could be somebody that passed you a lead
yeah.
to
Okay.
close a deal at Microsoft, and you absolutely take it with you. It's supposed to be your portable achievements, your portable record of achievements as told by others that you keep with you for life.
Dude, I love
And
that.
yeah, it's
I mean, you know me, like I'm somebody who's always like trying to, boost people up and, like let's just freaking love each other, man. Like let's don't wait until it's too late. I just talk about like just within your personal relationships, like your family members, your friends, like, tell them you love them while you're here, validate them. And to have something like that for the workplace in which you get to share all these, positive feedback for them. I just think that's so very important. I think that's really cool.
it's incredible to work for a company who has an express purpose and mission that is, you know, you can have purpose and profit,
Yeah.
but the way that they're attacking this is inspiring. I'm excited to, be. I'm excited to feel like I'm contributing good things, not
Yeah.
only into the world but into the business markets, and the fact that, I mean, the figures are like staggering. It's like 13% of people feel engaged at work,
Yeah.
and the number one thing that, increases engagement is like recognition and like,
Hmm.
hey, we
To
were in
feel
the,
like you're making a
well, we
difference.
were in the trenches together. And one of the things that I learned from the book that I read last week, I was talking about traction. I ended up finishing that last week, and that's a great playbook for. Um, it just educates you on how to structure an organization and the numbers to look out for, the different apparatus to set up to grow your organization successfully
Yeah.
over a long period of time. And one of the core tenets of this book is operating within your unique ability. So there are certain tasks at work, like, and I don't know enough. This is something I'm going to throw to you actually, because I want to use your teaching as an example.
Okay.
Because this system is not just for business; it could be for a lot of successful groups or
Yeah.
organizations. So, what you would say that there's different skills and tasks that you execute as a teacher, right?
Yeah. No doubt.
Okay. What is the thing that you're like best at, that you love, that you know you're good at?
Oh, my interaction with my students for sure.
Oh,
Like building relationship with them and for them to feel comfortable in my classroom, not only like creating a place where they can learn, but like where they feel like they belong.
are there any other teachers that are maybe better at serving on a button down committee or doing a lesson plan or
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
okay. So that's called like unique ability. Like you have a knack for people,
Yeah.
and you are, you're like a therapist and you don't even know it. So that's operating within your unique ability. You should be in the classroom or on the field trip or on the basketball bench
Hmm.
with kids, with these people, like that's your God-given ability. That's
Yeah.
what you're best at. And you can make the biggest impact if you operate within that lane. And if other people, if your principal is complimenting you with his administrative capabilities, with his
Hmm.
hiring capabilities, if you have support from all these different factions. And so um, I don't quite remember where I was even going with that, but the unique ability piece,
Yeah.
to really stay in your, to contribute within your most lethal weapon space, if you
Yeah. Yeah.
will,
Yeah.
and have others around you.
Well,
Here
it's
was
like
the point
so
that
I can accomplish something, and my coworkers they're more skilled in other areas.
exactly.
Yeah.
And if you recognize them, when you operate within your unique ability and no one tells you, hey, good job, or I saw that, or
Dude.
anything, you start to think, well, maybe I'm faking it. Maybe I
Yo,
don't actually work. Maybe,
that's why I left Maryland.
really?
Yeah. I felt like I was making an impact in my students' lives, but that went so unappreciated by my former boss. Now, I think she was great at her job as a principal. The school was very successful, but she didn't like really value what I was doing for the students. Um, and that became like such a bummer. And I want to be a place where you know not just like being buddy buddy with the friends, but like actually mentoring them and being there for them and to be lifted up. Like my current boss, he is like always praising me for my relationship with my students. Attending all of the sports games, being with them. Like last Friday, um, you know, school ends at noon, but I still stuck around until like 9 p.m. because from 7 to 9 we had like a Vespers, and I wanted to make sure that I went to that, even though I'm not required to. And like he sees all that and he really encourages it, and that pumps me up and makes me want to do it more. Like in Maryland, I felt like I was making an impact in my students' lives, but kids aren't necessarily going to verbalize it in a way that I need to hear to ensure I know that I'm making an impact. But to hear it from, a boss or a coworker, it is extremely valuable to me.
Yeah, I thrive on it as well, and I think that if you're good at what you do, if you love what you do, and if you're good at what you do, they say you never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
But you also want to feel the weariness of some level of work,
Yeah. Yeah.
the fulfillment of having sweated a little bit and gotten the project done.
Dude,
But
I put out, I was telling a few people on Monday, coming back into work over the weekend, that I seriously put out like 7 5, like, so I not only did I teach all of my lessons, I taught McBeth, I taught the Crucible, I taught a short story about King Midas with my sophomores. Um, Not only did I do all that, but students were coming in like during my free periods and during lunch, and some came in after school to like vent to me about all these things that is going on in their lives outside of the classroom. And I counted, and there were like 7 groups, either 7 individuals or 7 groups, however you want to count it, that came up to me to ask me for advice or like to vent about what was going on in their lives. And,
7 parties.
yeah, 7, yeah, you know,
I've been around you when this has happened. Like we went to dinner after the podcast, and we were talking about the kids on the podcast one day, and
dude, yeah.
you literally were getting texts from the kids at dinner that night.
Yeah, I mean, one of them has been texting me while I'm sitting here with you.
Overwhelming to me. But it convinces me that you're not in this for the paycheck, obviously.
Well, yeah,
I mean, if the paycheck went away, you would be gone. But at the same time, this is more of a calling and part of your mission for the moment. I think we all obviously know that if you stay in academia, you're going to be like an SVP of student life or something like that, probably at the collegiate level.
Right. And so, yeah, in saying all that,
you're going to have to learn how to delegate, because you will not, you can't keep this pace forever.
I realize
you
that.
need to do stuff for you too. I want to wrap up this thought real quick and then keep going. I like to praise people for operating within their unique ability, because if you're all of a diverse skill set, it's all magic.
Yeah.
When I was at my design agency, my branding agency, I would, give a creative brief to a designer, or I would give, a tech spec sheet to a developer, and then would come back and the page would have turned from black and white lines to like, parallax movement and rollover states and all of these different things. And I would, I would literally just say, how'd you do it? Like, this is magic. This is incredible. And as a result, even if it was, Thursday at 9:30 p.m. and we were still at the office grinding it out, we were a family. We were there doing it together. And sometimes you need that trench mentality, so to speak. But I think it's important to recognize, like, hey, you're awesome at that, and I suck at that. I appreciate you being there to do that. So I'm really glad that, I feel for, we've got friends right now that will remain unnamed that are teachers, business people. They work in civic associations, like, or not-for-profit groups. And I know people from every representative function of society that are unhappy due to a boss that is not connected to them, not engaged with them, not recognizing them, or even worse, maybe throwing them under the bus. Or I think the only thing worse than negative engagement is no engagement, when they just don't talk to you, when they don't reply to your email.
Right.
That's the worst.
Yep.
Radio silence is worse than even a hand slap, I think.
Yeah, no doubt.
But I'm sorry that you experienced that in Maryland.
That's fine.
That's shocking, because from everything I knew about that particular school, I thought that was kind of, compared to the school that you originally taught at, the parents were a lot more dialed in. The school was well funded. I thought it was
Yeah,
going to
I mean,
be,
they were highly successful. Like, it
but
was
it was a
very,
test. It was a test score school, wasn't
yeah.
it?
And even though like my test scores were up, um, I don't know. It just I did not feel fulfilled. Like, I was doing my job, but like you said, like, I'm just kind of clocking in. I'm not really getting a lot of feedback, and what I truly cared about wasn't valued, and that was a real bummer to me. So I came back home, um, and I love. Hey, you finally reeled one back in for me.
Hmm.
Good job, man. Typically, yeah, I got a little carried away there. But really, what I wanted to end on from that conversation is that I don't say all that to toot my own horn and be like, oh, look at me, like, I'm making a difference in all these kids' lives. But um, just the fact that I can reach some kids, and the other teachers can reach different personality kids because you know due to their personality, and all of us coming together to enrich the kids' lives and be there for them and help mentor them. And I don't know, that's what's really important and cool for me to see. Like, I would hate to work at a place where every single person was like me, because I don't reach every single kid. um
Well, no shade. I hate me. No,
yeah, yeah.
no, I just that would be annoying. Like
Right, exactly. And so that's why I love what this company that you've signed on with stands for, because just to hear that you're doing a great job, and for people to highlight those things, like, that company is literally there, like, in the most literal sense, to make a positive impact, and I love that.
yeah, to better connect people and just recognition and creating that better emotional culture and just the numbers that come out of that. I'm sure I'll continue to experience more understanding as far as all of those go. But you can attribute. I was looking at stats today, like $500 billion in GDP essentially lost due to people that just they don't care. They're
Yeah.
moving their mouse around. Is it five yet?
Yeah.
Um, and so that's yeah, I'm super excited about that. That's all I'm gonna really say about the gig so far. I'm loving the office. I have
Yep.
a great commute. I've got a great team. I'm excited to go attack this market with a tool and platform and purpose that I believe in,
Yeah.
and others obviously do as well. So it's an exciting time. It's interesting being back in a job. I would say 9 to 5. I've been trying to show up pretty early all of this week.
That's right, baby.
I'm still old school like that. I'm like, gotta get
Yeah.
in before the big boss man's
No,
there.
I'm the same way. At the school where I work, it's like the principal that shows up, and then I'm typically the second person that gets into work. So
That's how it was at my branding agency. The boss would get there at like 5:30
yeah,
a.m.
yeah,
if or
same.
4:30. Like it
That's
was
how mine is.
insane. So I would walk in 3 hours. Like I'd be there at like 7:30. Like
Right.
hey, and I'm thinking I'm getting mad points right now, but.
Yeah.
The right bosses don't actually care about the hours that you employ if you're getting the job done and
Right.
excelling.
Yep. As long as you're efficient.
Obviously in sales there's always going to be a component of these doors to remain open between 8 and 5 type deal
Uh-huh.
because you're trying to transact business.
Yep.
But anyway, yeah, I want to moving forward, I want to draw inspirational or funny stories kind of vaguely from that experience, but um I'm not gonna delve too far in just from a
Yep.
confidentiality standpoint. And
I hear you.
I'm not really sure what we started this and I didn't have
We
a
were.
job,
Yeah.
so
And we weren't going to talk about relationships, or like, here we are.
yeah, religion,
Yeah.
who we actually were, anything.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have a
So
frog in my throat. I've been so dry this week, man, with this weather, and I
yeah.
don't know if it's
Yo, that cold front hit.
oh my goodness, my skin is just cracking and
Yeah.
it's been terrible. Um, so what else did we've talked about SWAU, we talked about the new job. Oh, yeah, like I wanted to give you a shout out. So we had
Oh.
talked about books last week. We talked about Malcolm Gladwell, I guess, on the
Yeah.
podcast a week ago, and B-Rad had said, "Oh, I've got that," and I wanted to borrow it, so I texted him today, and I was like, "Can you bring Outliers to me tonight?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." So he shows up. He bought me my own edition.
Yeah. I bought it before. I bought it for you before you had even asked me to bring it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
Um,
crazy.
for Christmas, for some of my friends, like I'm wanting to get them some books that I felt have impacted my life, and I know you showed interest in that one, so I wanted to make sure that you had your own copy.
Well, thank you, man. I'm
It's no big
super
deal.
excited to dig into that since I wrapped Traction on Friday, and it's now Wednesday, so I've been kind of hungry. I didn't want to dive back into the 4 just because I didn't care about it in that moment,
Yeah.
but I will. But yeah, I grinded out Traction in probably 3 days, and um, hadn't. I'm ashamed to admit this. I hadn't devoured a book like that, so quickly, and really just I felt like been engaged.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like my experience too often in my adult life has been this book is highly recommended. It's got all the secrets.
Mm-hmm.
Read 50 or 100 pages on a flight. Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
All right. Like 4-hour work week, Tim Ferriss. I wrote Tim Ferriss off for a long time because I was like, this guy doesn't want me to actually do anything in life. I'm
Yeah.
like, somebody in India is living my life for me, and I don't. I'm
Yeah.
like, what do I have left to do? Like,
Right.
I hadn't accounted for a world where it was like, just do whatever, like
Yeah.
it didn't make sense. When he said you spend 2 hours twice a month on
Mm-hmm.
email, essentially, like
Yeah.
every other month, I was like, this guy is crazy.
Right.
So, anyway, I got the governing principles of what he was talking about, and I am trying to be a better time
You got the
manager.
cliff notes.
I didn't finish the book,
Yeah, that's
you know,
okay.
but with Traction, I was like, I read it cover to cover.
Right. That's awesome.
And yeah, I think reading, people say that the amount of money you're going to make is directly proportional to the number of good books that you're reading, right now.
Yeah.
And I have friends that are just, more voracious readers than I am even. What, so you read McBeth, you
I
do all
mean,
of this.
yeah, I mostly do all the literature.
Um, do you read personally?
Typically, like during the summers, yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
I'll try to read like the best like nonfiction, what's ever at the top of the list, and then a couple of like self help or I love reading like psychology type books.
So what I've started to do is I'm trying to limit screen time much more.
Yeah.
I haven't obviously been watching much at all
Yep.
recently, and I traded in a lot of screen time last week to get Traction in before I started this job, and it was, I got a big return on energy from that. Like waking up, even, my first inclination was I like to watch Allison Camerata and John Berman on Good Day, CNN,
Yeah.
from like 6 to 7 type deal. And this time I woke up, I read 100 pages of the book, and I felt like my brain was more alive and ready to tackle the day. And like,
Yeah.
even my level of conversation was elevated in that day. I find that if my physical activity is at par for the week, like if I've gotten my steps in or played golf or something, like I'm happier. If I've meditated, I can finish the sentence more crisply. I can
Yeah.
navigate the thought process better. Like I get off track and go on tangents less. When I meditate, when I have some element of physical activity, and if you layer reading, good conversations, good work, like just you can level up as a human. But I think that, you know, it's hard because there are so many professionals that are working so hard and they're not reading the book, and
Yeah.
these people that are always like reading 3 books plus doing all that stuff, it's like, well, maybe that's what's called for,
Yeah. For sure.
but it's exciting to be in a position where because you read this, you want to read that now, and that's going to lead you to that. So it's like it's this never-ending trail that's fueled by desire and curiosity, and not
Yeah.
some arbitrary sense of like, well, gotta level up, hustle, grind, Monday motivation. Which
Right.
I'm guilty. Like I tweeted the book cover and hashtag something. I think it was pretty intrinsic to the book, but I'm. Have you noticed that on my Twitter? Like I'm not hashtagging as
No.
much.
No.
Like
No.
I'm trying to
You.
be genuine
It's
and
it's a lot more personable rather than like. Yeah, I've told you off the pod. Like previously, whenever you were working for all these companies, or you were the co-owner, um, it, the tweets just seemed a lot more like robotic or like just
That's
very.
because I'm a bad social media manager.
No, it's not even that. It's just like, here are statistics for this. Like, here's just some numbers thrown at you. And it's like, well, me as an outsider who's not like really in the business world, like, I don't really know what that means. Like, I'm a good friend of yours, so I'm always going to support you. I'll throw you a like. I'll retweet whatever you're saying. That doesn't mean that I understand it though. And so just now it just seems a lot more personable, and I can kind of understand a little better like what you do or what's going on in your day to day whenever you're in the office, or different things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that we've obviously been generating a lot of content with this podcast, and I think that we've had a very measured approach to promoting this. Like
Yeah.
we pretty much tweet out one or two tweets about each episode,
Yep.
and typically it's like I reply to myself. I'm like, hey, as a follow up, like check out this stat, or
Yeah.
thanks to this, or whatever. And the cool thing is that we've gotten more tweets about the show than we've probably tweeted in some ways,
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
which is incredible and probably the way it should be.
Yeah.
Because it's funny, and this is one of the things that I was going to address at the top of the show, and I didn't. Um, we should. I don't know if we should pre-record an intro or have a standard boilerplate of like, hey, here's who we are. Like, hey, I'm Brad. He's Carson. We met in college. We graduated years apart, and we remain close through cross country. Like whatever the little thing is that catches you up at the beginning of the show, because they're not very standalone in certain
Yeah.
ways.
He's type A, while I'm type B.
So it's a double-edged sword, right? In that we got a text from I think it was Michael the other day, and he was like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
just I listened to episode 9 yesterday. I'm almost through episode 10 today, and I see in our analytics like I can tell when somebody's working up the list
Yeah.
because all the numbers move up. Like the last episode is always the one that's climbing the most, but then I'll see all the others move up like 2, for instance.
So it's like whoever like just tuned in for the first time, it's like now they're going back further back in the catalog and listening to others.
Yeah, and I always ask people like I've had a lot of people. We talked about this last week, like even in business, family, whoever that have tuned into the podcast, and I'm always like, which one did you listen to, and for how long? Like, what was your intro? Because I'm fascinated to know if you're going back to episode. I've talked to people that are like, oh no, I started at episode 1, and you were on episode 8, and that is cool for sure.
Yeah, and we just cover so many different spaces, so it's like within the past several episodes, like, did you just zoom forward and listen to me, kind of laugh and talk about Pink Taco, or have you listened to me like give a heart to heart, like, how much I care about my students, or have you heard me talk about like my favorite rap music? Like, there's a lot of different things, different sound bites, just depending on whether or not you've listened the whole way through or what episode you've listened to, and that's the same for you, Carson.
Yeah, and I had a golf match with a buddy the other day, and he was like, "Yeah, I listened to 20 minutes of your." He's a recent podcast adopter. It was so funny. Like I've talked to him about podcasts in the past, and he'd never really listened to one. And so I talked to him about I listen to all of these. Like I actually have one. Like I wasn't pitching it to him heavy.
Yeah.
But he listened. It was so funny. He had a long drive a couple of weeks ago. And I guess that one of his favorite rockers or somebody had been on JRE. Did I already tell this story? I'm having deja vu right now.
I don't think so.
So it illustrates a point that I'm trying to make here, that one of his favorite rockers from some band was on Joe Rogan Experience. And so he listened to his first ever Joe Rogan episode, who obviously I probably consumed that podcast more than any.
Was it My Chemical Romance?
I don't know.
Okay, sorry. Anyway,
It was it was the guy's name. It was like last 10 episodes.
Gerard Way?
No.
Okay, never mind then.
No. It was
not what I'm thinking of.
Anyway, so he was like, yeah, I really liked, I thought that they were going to like interview this guy from this perspective, and it ended up just being this free-for-all session where they talked about theory and like all of these different underlying things, and like he was just marinating and reflecting on kind of how free form a podcast can be and how deep it can go. And I was like, yeah, man, like it's really exciting to hear you talk about listening to your first podcast. Josh Homme, yeah, Queens
Queens of the Stone
of the
Age.
Stone Age. So he was a big fan of that band, apparently.
Yeah.
And as a result, Joe Rogan got a new listener because he had an interview that caught someone's eye because of the guest. Now, what I told my buddy to do is I said, what you're going to do now is you're going to exhaust. You're just going to type in Joe Rogan, Mike Tyson, Joe Rogan, Bernie Sanders. Like,
Yeah.
think of any combination you could ever think of living.
Yeah. And see if they have
And
an
some
episode.
dead probably.
Yeah.
And see if there's an interview for that. And I said, once you've gone through all of those based on the guest recognition and interest, you will have such an understanding and trust level of Joe Rogan that you will allow him to introduce you to people that
To
you
new
would
people.
not have given
Exactly.
a chance originally.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, like, ours is more like a telenovela. It's like, you must start in chapter 1, my dear.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. You never.
This is a
Ours is a
unraveling
mixed
story.
bag, baby.
And I love our podcast, honestly,
Yeah.
like, because we talk about literally everything. You know, our jobs, business, media, the world, religion, love, whatever, life. And
That's right.
I think that obviously we have a lot of shared history where, you know, we can extend each other the benefit of the doubt, or we kind of know where we're going on a certain tangent or whatever. But,
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, he was saying that he listened to 20 minutes of ours, and I was like,
Which part?
yeah. I don't think he even remembered, but it just struck me that I'm like, if you're just coming in, like, oh, I'll click on episode 11, you know, it's like, how are we setting it up to where it could be standalone per se? Or I guess my question is, I'm not a true consumer of this. Like, I listen to every episode, but I don't have that mindset where, you know, if I could listen to it through a person's ears that has
That's
never heard my voice.
Yeah, like hearing these stories for the first time.
Is episode 11 going to hold up? Do you have any interest? You know what I mean?
I mean, they should.
No, I mean,
Like, well, I'm not even being cocky, but like, you know, our discussion as far as you know, decriminalization of drugs, or, you know, education, business, or, you know, our stance on, you know, these SoundCloud rappers. Like, I feel like there is
I'm not
some
judging
weightiness.
the quality of our content, because I'm always struck listening back. I'm like, wow, this is fascinating.
Dang,
You know?
we're smart. We're smart dudes.
Well, and often when I feel like we
I'm just kidding.
get out onto a conversational limb where it's like, oh, where was I going? Like, how do I get back to the tree? Like,
Reel it back in.
all of that is typical. Like, upon listening to the produced show, it goes a lot smoother than you're thinking. Like, it all comes out of the big magic machine if it's just through Apple Podcast, right? But anyway, something to think about, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll think about a hokey little intro, like
I don't know, man. I'll
like a
just
90s sitcom.
Yeah, I'll do a rap every episode.
You really should. That would probably drive analytics. Like, man, if David,
Wansa?
if he did a custom rap for our show to play us in, that would be so dope.
Yeah, maybe we can, or maybe I'll work out a deal with him.
What could we barter with him?
Money.
I'm like,
I mean,
can we put him in the show notes?
I'll throw him. Honestly, like, he's actually done some podcasting himself, and so he's familiar with it, and he would actually be really insightful for a lot of stuff too.
Well, and you know, if anybody's listening to this and they're like a SoundCloud rapper and they want to send us a clip, like, I will read your upcoming show locations for 8 consecutive episodes if we play your song at the top of every episode.
Yeah.
Straight up, I will. Like, you know that we have sponsorship capabilities for this right now. Like, I have friends that are monetizing podcasts with fewer listens than us, but we're not turning that stuff on.
Nah.
You can't buy us.
You can't. I mean, you can.
You can.
Well, yeah.
I'm for sale.
Yeah. We'll talk pricing. Hey, everything's negotiable.
Have you ever heard that Winston Churchill story about
Sure.
he asked a woman, excuse me, madam, but would you sleep with me for £1 million? And she said, oh, of course. And he goes, would you sleep with me for £100? And she said, what do you think, I'm a whore? And he said, well, I know that you're a whore. I'm simply negotiating the price now. And it was, I don't know if that was Winston Churchill's interaction or just a famous quote from him, or if he had nothing to do with any of this.
Yeah.
But I think of that quote often, just
Yeah.
from a hypocrisy standpoint.
Mm.
You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, we haven't turned sponsorships on, and don't really have a. We did hit the 100-hour mark in the last 60 days. So
That's right.
iTunes, and that's just through iTunes.
Yeah.
iTunes analytics suck.
And only 98 of the hours were consumed by me and Carson.
Yo, we're up above 750 listens too.
I love that.
That's cool. Well, I appreciate all of y'all out there. Like,
Once again, shout out to the listeners.
the fact that any of you are listening blows my mind every week.
And we're going to say it every week.
Like, I told somebody the other day, they were like, how many people are listening? I'm like, 75 or 100 per episode.
Yeah.
They were like, really? I was like, yeah, like, and I'm thrilled to death with that. Like, that's insane to me.
Yeah, that's wild.
So yeah, shout out to the weekly catch up fam.
Mm.
We're both working. Brad, slogged through the traffic to get here late since I'm working the job now. Thankfully I can be home in 7 minutes.
Love that.
So I called him leaving the office and I was like, I'm on my way home. And he goes,
like, I'm already here.
I just rolled up. I'm like, 7 minutes out.
Yeah, no, it worked out.
Anyway, well, anything, dude? We should probably go because we're gonna battle that 2-hour limit again.
Yeah. We'll
you got any shout outs? Brock hit us up this week.
Shout out Brock, of course, and then I have 3 others. I just want to shout out Gerald Gullickson, one of my besties.
Gerald.
He just finished last night his final night shift. He had been working 7 years on the night shift, and now he has finally switched to the day shift so he can start taking classes. Dude wants to be a firefighter, so we're going to see if we can further that goal in 2020.
Dude, he's been on night shift for 7 years?
7 years. That's from the movie Never Back Down. That was a perfect impression. Also, I want to shout out Raul Vigil, another one of my boys. I've known him since kindergarten. He just passed his finals, and he only has 1 more year of school, and then he'll finally be graduated. He's doing like some computer tech stuff, and so I just wanted to say I'm super proud of him. I don't even think he listens to this podcast at all, but I just wanted to shout out one of my boys. And then who else did I have? I felt like I had one more, but I don't know. Who do you have to shout out?
Probably just my family and Ellen and my friends for being so supportive as I go back to work. Yes, I got so many great texts and people that wanted a phone call that have just been really supportive. I was honestly emotional over the weekend just thinking like this chapter of my life. I've never not gone into the office or all these different things, and so I was almost emotional just thinking like this is the last Sunday night in this scenario, like in this chapter, in this distinct chapter of my life. And that was really, really moving to me, and it's kind of moody over it. But my family, Ellen, my friends, you, and shout out to my extended family. I wanted to say this real quick, and I'm probably can't say too much, but I grew up in this amazing extended family that I took for granted. I thought this is the way of life. I come from this amazing family that we'd had this huge Christmas celebration with 50 people and 4 generations. And, the generations at the top were spread probably 8 or 10 across, of siblings and cousins that, had grandchildren that they had passed down. And I was just one of the young ones, running around, from table to table, and just thought this is the way it's always going to be. And then, you lose grandparents and family members, and all of those other generations did as well. And then if you haven't been investing in the generation that you're a part of and actively reaching out or being available or just loving and taking an interest, family are just friends with a bloodline connection.
Yeah.
Or acquaintances, even worse. Like when you're family, you don't have to work at it in your mind for a while.
Right.
And so as a result, the huge Christmases that we'd always historically had, well, what happens if there's a key divorce, or if there's a key death in the family, or if 2 people have a riff and they're influencers from either side, or I'm presenting all of these scenarios, and I feel like all of these scenarios will probably happen and more in my family and every other family.
Yeah.
But myself and one of the guys from the younger generation, he's slightly older than me, but on the other side of the family, we just took it upon ourselves to say, let's get the entire family together this Christmas.
Yeah.
And so we hatched a plan and executed on the plan, and we have everybody coming. Everybody. Like,
let's go.
All the people that I think it's going to be a therapeutic, like, love session of sorts in that, I think some of the older folks in the family, some of the older generation, if you will, are inspired by the fact that the kids kind of put their foot down and said, we should really all be together. Like, life is too precious. We don't know how many Christmases we all have left together.
Yeah. Good for you guys, man.
So yeah, I'm really excited. It's been the big personal endeavor for my family over the last couple of weeks as I went into work. So shout out to all of them for going along with the new situation, the new scenario. My parents are actually going to host.
Great.
We're going to have a big, lively group. So I'm really excited about that.
That's wonderful, man. I'm happy to hear that.
All right. Anybody else?
A couple of my students said that they had tuned in here and there. So if you're listening to this, you should be doing your homework. Finals are next week.
Win a basketball game.
No, my kids win.
Go to Southwestern and win a basketball game.
They need you. So love to my students. Love to, once again, everybody that's been listening. Really appreciate you guys.
Love.
It's all love, baby. Appreciate you.
Appreciate the rap at the top. I can't wait to go back and listen to that. Maybe that's the show intro.
That's episode 11 specific, but.
All right, fam. That's it for Wednesday, December 11, 2019. We'll be back with at least one more episode before Christmas. Yeah. So we'll keep you updated. Thanks for listening. As always, we're available on all the major platforms, weeklycatchuppodcast.com. I'm available on Twitter at Carson C. Gibbons and Instagram, Carson Gibbons.
Twitter, Humble Brad. Instagram, Brad Colvin. And we will catch you up next week.
Bye-bye.